Liberal Democrat leader Vince Cable delivers a speech on the final day of the party conference, with one notable quote. Getty Images, Martha Gill 2 minutes Tuesday, September 18, 2018. Is there anything more Lib Dem than promising an erotic spasm and then, in the event, delivering instead an exotic spasm? Forgive me if you haven't heard. The Lib Dems spent yesterday heavily briefing journalists that in his big speech to conference today Vince Cable would use the phrase erotic spasm to describe Tory Brexiteers' feelings about leaving the EU, to reluctant headlines and a general verdict of "okay, bit queasy now." The moment came, and was it performance anxiety? He said exotic spasm instead. Happens to the best of us, I guess, but unfortunately it means that the coverage of Cable's big speech, the climax of his party's yearly conference, will now be dominated not by his attempt to lead the resistance to the forces of illiberalism, but by jokes about wanking. I'm trying my best not to make matters worse, but there are only so many ways to describe Vince's seminal moment and how he fluffed it. What I'm saying is, this is hardly the happy ending to conference the Lib Dems had hoped for. Read more. Vince Cable, disaffected Labour MPs should join the Lib Dems. Why does this always happen to the Lib Dems? Honestly, this not the first time they have ruined a big moment by unnecessarily bringing sex into it, and b, somehow doing this so dreadfully that it's all people talk about for months. Last year Tim Farron did this to the election campaign, thoroughly hijacking the whole thing by refusing to say in interviews whether he thought gay sex was a sin. He kept this going for several weeks, while his party tried in vain to keep the conversation on potholes and Brexit, finally deciding it wasn't a sin, then after it was over deciding to go back on it, after an attack of religious conscience. The incident tarnished the campaign, destroyed him as a politician, and, perhaps most regrettable of all, inspired a new song at this year's party conference Monday Night Glee Club, set to the tune of "It's a Sin" by Low and Tennant. It went, "When I go back upon Newsnight, you know it's going to cause you pain, I'm speaking on gay sex again, for every single interview, no matter when or where or who, has gay sex in common too, it's a sin, etc." Martha Gill, but it's not just Tim. It's a theme. Last year Cable published a book called Open Arms, which featured erotic scenes, telling interviewers, rather regretfully, that he didn't think he was a contender for the Bad Sex Awards, and told BBC's Pinars Politics that he would give Theresa May a consolatory cuddle during the programme's Snog, Marie, Avoid quiz. During the 2017 election campaign, a Lib Dem candidate said she believed that feminizing hormones in the water supply were affecting people's sexuality. And of course, unlike the Tories in Labour, who are able to brush off fairly severe sex scandals after a couple of weeks, the slightest sex incident sticks to the Lib Dems permanently. So why provoke it? Why the sex references? In the run-up to Vince's speech yesterday, amid bemusement over his intended erotic spasm, Jacob Rees-Mogg kindly suggested that this was tactical, saying, "Is this the only way the Lib Dems can get anyone to pay attention to their otherwise dull conference?" But having listened to this speech, a confused, indeed spasm-y, mess of ideas, expressed in bad cliches, it feels more likely to be the result of a brief and ill-considered fumble around his brain. He and the rest of his party should stop doing this. He and his party should take better care with their language, or they might just finish themselves off. More on Brexit analysis. Goodwill for the Liberal Democrats is still failing to reap electoral dividends. Vince Cable says Brexit can and must be stopped. In rallying call to Liberal Democrats, John McDonnell concerned second Brexit referendum could give more traction to far-right groups.